Vinay, what was killing growth in the past in the business?
As a small business owner, you wear one, two, sometimes nine hats all at the same time, all in the same day. And that was a challenge. So I had to kind of get myself out of that mindset and learn a lot of things to get better at that.
Some appreciate your candor there. And we will hear how he worked through that and was able to get beyond that and the things that specifically had to change to enable that. Folks, we're talking with business owners about the messy middle stage of growth. It's where the company has grown, but the owner is still working harder than ever because too much is running through them. Today, you'll hear how Vinay is working through hiring and delegating better so that growth doesn't keep pulling him into the day to day. Vinay owns Ace Handyman Services. They do everything from small handyman jobs to larger home maintenance projects. I'm Coach Tim Campsall. This is Self-Made is a Myth. Welcome to the show, Vinay.
Thank you, Tim.
Well, hey, let's start at the beginning. Stepping into ownership requires a leap of faith. And so I'd love to hear what was it that made you believe, hey, I can do this, even when you didn't have it all figured out yet?
Yeah, to be a small business owner, you got to be a little crazy, jump into something like this. And I've had that little craziness for a long, long time. And so I came from a corporate background. I'm a mechanical engineer originally. I used to work in the automotive space. Most of my time spent at a company called Cummins down in Columbus, Indiana. They make diesel engines. So I did engineering, marketing, and all the while I had this itch to do something on my own. And, many moons ago, I got, into franchising and interested in that. I even got approved for a home improvement franchise 10, 15 years ago. But, cold feet, corporate ladder climbing, all that dreams happen. And I said, nope, I'm not ready yet. And then COVID hit and something changed in me. And I said, you know what? It's now or never.
Good for
And
you.
then when your spouse also kind of indicates, I'm tired of, listening to you complain, that's a good sign that you better do it now or just keep your peace forever. So, yeah, I jumped into it and it's been a blast since then.
Fantastic.
And I dabbled in, this and that side hustle type things earlier, but yeah, got into franchising and it's been quite the ride. Not easy, but I definitely enjoy what I'm doing, on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I'm glad you were able to let go of those golden handcuffs of the corporate world and take the leap. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So now after the fact, what's been the biggest difference between what you expected and the reality of ownership?
I mean, I jumped into it, having been in the corporate side. I didn't think that it could be easy
Mhm.
because small business is a whole different beast, and I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I had the confidence that with my 25 plus years of experience, I knew I'd do something, whether all right or all wrong, I had to jump into it and find out. But yeah, but But of course, the reality is, somewhere in the middle always, and you kind of realize every day that, oh no, I need to learn this. I thought I already knew this, but
Yes.
now I got to go, learn about something else. So you kind of go home every evening having a checklist in your mind that, okay, I need these other five things to figure
Yes.
out and come back next morning.
Well, the interesting thing about that is the business can only grow to our knowledge and skill level. And the business today has different needs of knowledge and skill than it did, a month ago or a year ago, because it's continually evolving and so must we, right?
Absolutely. And then, being in the home services side, you got to continuously on a daily basis have a pulse on if your team's doing good and
Mhm.
if the quality is good and keep tweaking. Coming from an engineering background, continuous improvement is a term that's widely used in a lot of engineering businesses, and I kind of think of that term almost every day because
Mhm.
I keep tweaking things and
Yeah.
keep things better.
Wonderful. Earlier, you shared that wearing up to 9 different hats on a daily basis was killing growth in the past. So talk us through that. What was happening and what changes did you make that helped you to resolve it or work through it?
So 6, almost 7 years ago, I started Ace Handyman with myself and 2 craftsmen in a tiny 400 square feet office room in downtown Carmel. Mm, uh, so I'm an engineer, I'm pretty practical, I'm good with my hands, and I had the confidence that I know what I'll do here as a business owner, and that turned out just fine. And so but then you quickly realize you need to be the manager, you need to be the operations guy, you need to know how to handle the phone, talk to the
Right.
customers, you need to know how to fix problems when something comes up. You need to be good in accounting, finance, all of that little things. And so it was a daily grind of, okay, what am I good at? And what do I really need to learn very quickly to fill some of the gaps? And so, you start off with, okay, I think I'm wearing 2 hats today. But then, you know, the first week and the second week and the first month kind of tell you, no, you need 9 more hats to go flip flop on and keep going. So it's the small business world is simply, if I put it in simple words, it's simply being open to learn something new every day about yourself and also a certain topic that you feel like you probably know, but you're not good at.
That early growth stage, what you described is very much what has to happen, right? It's the business isn't big enough yet to be able to hire people for all those hats. So we, as the owner, has to wear them all and has to figure them out. And right. And there's lots of trial and error and hustle and grind and adapting until eventually, things start clicking and the business starts to evolve and grow. And then we can start looking at who do we give those hats to.
Absolutely.
So when you were in that messiness of the 9 different hats and every day is different, what was the personal cost to you?
Well, I always say this nowadays almost on a daily basis. We've grown enough where we have a bigger office, we have a showroom now full of products, and we have more traffic and more customers. Either I'm going out to do estimates or homeowners coming to our showroom, and we're only open Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. We're not really open on weekends. But my line always to every customer is, I'm the owner, I have no life. So feel free to request a weekend appointment and I'll be there. Right. And so to your question, yeah, personal cost has been, yeah, not a lot of personal time. Complains a lot and says, you're always working. And that usually is the direct number one result of a
Mm,
small business owner's interest in getting the business to grow. Right. And then of course you kind of lose track of time as well. That's the
yes.
second point. You think you're working 50, 60 hours, but you're probably doing more in terms of mental gymnastics,
Yes.
and then you wake up all groggy and thinking, well, I had this problem in my mind when I went to bed and I woke up thinking about that. So I think the personal side does take a beating, but I guess that's either the peril or the joy of being a small business owner.
You mentioned the 50 to 60 hours. I hear that all the time. I ask client, "Okay, so how many hours are you actually spending?" "Oh, about 50 or 60." And then I'll say, "Okay, let me ask that different. How many are you spending, including when you're thinking about it at home or working at home, or you're supposed to be watching TV, but you're not paying attention because you're really solving a problem in your head?" Like, maybe 70 or 80. Earlier, I mentioned that hiring and delegating is an area that needs to be focused on so that you're not continually getting sucked back into the day to day. So, give us some context around that. What's happening and how does it affect you that you've raised it as something that needs to be a focus?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as you grow, every small business is unique. Even though we're a franchise and the franchise does a great job of giving us a process to follow and all that, still you're on your own in terms of growing your business, right? And so, like I mentioned earlier, I started with 2 craftsmen. We've had as many as 12 in the last few years. And I think right now we're at 9 craftsmen. So, it, you know, we we've had office manager for help and We're using automation now for, assisting with phone calls. All of that kind of helps you a little bit delegate better. But still, the challenge always, especially in the home service business, is the operations side of things, right? What happens in the field. So I've had to kind of learn to say, you know what? Yeah, you have the energy to manage that, but you probably need to create a layer in the
Yeah.
team where a senior craftsman now is sort of promoted to be the project coordinator, so to
Okay.
say.
Yeah.
And I know that's pretty standard, but like I said, every business is different, and how you create that and when you create that layer, that's a challenge, and that's another thing you have to kind of learn as a business owner
Yeah.
is is it now or do I wait for a little bit more time? Is this person ready versus do I
Yeah.
wait a little bit more?
Yeah.
Lots of different variables come in there.
The other thing that I see a lot is it's hard to make that first let go, right? Because you've spent months or years figuring everything out and finally getting it to the point that it seems like it's successful or it's sustainable. And then there's a fear of, well, if I hire and delegate, what if they can't do it as well as me?
Exactly. So one of the benefits I have, especially being the home service business, is all of our employees are craftsmen, are our employees. So when I hire, I'm hiring, employees into the company. And it's typical, especially in the home service business, that you do subcontract.
Right.
You know, we don't do that, right? And so it's a plus on a positive and a challenge, not a negative, but a positive and a challenge, I would say. Positive because it's your team, your employees. A challenge because you now have that extra responsibility to make sure they grow, they all are employed properly, and then they're all putting out quality work, right? So that's where the difficulty in delegation and letting go comes in, and it's almost like a muscle you have to train to say, "Yep, you're good. I think I've trained you well. You've not messed up too much. So
Right.
you're on your own."
Yeah. Yeah. It's managing. It doesn't always come natural and it can be a full-time job, right? Managing people to deliver consistently against results requires, I like your word, it requires a muscle, right? It's a skill that is has to be gained and exercised and utilized. Otherwise, left to our own, most folks will not be as efficient and as effective as they could be if they're being held accountable. And so, but talk us through a little bit. So this is a current focus for you in terms of hiring and delegating well. If you don't, and I know you will because I know your character, but for those listening, right? If it doesn't get fixed, what does it cost the business?
Well, I think we talked a little bit about if I don't fix it, then, the personal cost is obvious. I think secondly, the scaling and the growth of the business does get, affected. At end of the day, you can have technology, you can have lots of tools, which I'm pretty comfortable, and we use a lot of technology in our business, which helps me manage the business. I'm realistic to, know that if I need to go from the 9 craftsman team to 18, 20 craftsmen
Right.
and, help the Hamilton County communities, that definitely requires, more sort of middle layer uh,
Yes.
craftsmen,
Yeah.
project coordinators, perhaps supervisors, and then of course me delegating better. That's another joke in the office going on. Is last year I told the team my goal this year in 2025 is to delegate a lot more, and I failed miserably. So that goal is back on 2026, and I'm doing okay this so far.
Good.
But again, it's like, I gotta lift weights, train that muscle to say, all right, just go ahead and let go a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and it's hard to, it's like letting go of a baby, right? You've blood, sweat, and tears into creating this thing that's working well, and then there's a fear and a risk of, well, if I delegate it, what's going to happen? Right? And
Yeah.
so that's where that manager muscle comes in, is learning how to delegate and hold people accountable and set standards and expectations and training. And the reality you mentioned, if you have too many people, that's a real constraint. Is we can only manage about 6 to 8 people well, and if we have more than 6 to 8 people reporting into us, we're just not going to be good at getting the best out of them. Adding those middle management layers that you're talking about, it's
You're
super
saying,
important if you want to scale, right?
yeah, you're saying each individual can, you know, manage 6 to 8 people effectively, and after that, it gets to be
Yeah.
a little too much.
Yeah. And then it also depends on how much, are they a working manager or are they just a manager, right? If they're a working manager, then they can't do 6 to 8, right? They may only be able to do 2 to 4 because they have their own job as well.
I've kind of been pretty lean as far as, staffing in the office, so yeah, I am definitely more than the 6 to 8 range, and you're absolutely right, one person can only juggle so many balls that are up in the air. After that, you either gotta, give it to somebody else or, you drop a few balls,
Yeah.
which is not good either.
Yes. Yeah. To manage people well, you should be spending at least 1 hour a week one on one with them. Right. So if you think of, right, if I have 20 people, that's 20 hours a week, right? That's a big commitment. So Vinay, what lesson do you wish that you'd learned sooner? And what would have knowing that saved you from?
I think a couple of things. One of the main things that I've even in my corporate life that I used, but then I kind of forgot, I think, was do what you're good at and do really well at that.
Mm,
And as a small business owner, if you're not good at something, then let somebody else do that. So that was sort of the first thing I had to learn in the first year itself. And I very quickly said finance and accounting can be somebody else's. And so that's where having a good network helps.
hmm
Similar minded business owners, peers, colleagues. And I got a great referral for my CPA who's been with me for many years now and an accounting person. I said, all right, I also am not good at that. So here you go. You can take care of that. And then the second, learning for me was it took me a couple of years to do this because I don't know if it was ego saying, "Oh, I've done something like this for 25 years and I can, have manage teams and manage more people." And you had that spot on. 6 to 8 is about the range of a person can be effective with. And I then had to say, "All right, now I need an office manager and then I need somebody else out in the field, for example." So we're not there yet, but we're kind of there in that transition where we're getting better and we're managing things a little better. Thankfully, none of this has affected our output quality, so
hmm
that's kind of been a, saving grace, I guess.
Yeah. What if any cost was there to the business in terms of not making those shifts sooner?
Um, I guess we could have grown a little more
Okay.
if I had the middle layer of management. That's I think the number one thing that comes to mind. Growth could have been faster, but again, you sit there and think, you know, do I really want to go fast or do I want to output good quality,
Yep.
services? And
Yeah.
especially this being a service company, you kind of want to keep it tight knit and putting out good quality service every day. That's another sort of challenge where you keep going back and forth and saying, well, I'm growing this year, but how much do I want to go now? And
Yes. Yeah.
so yeah, that's a balance.
The thing I see often is that balance between wanting to be in the day to day to take care of the customer service versus what's the opportunity cost of if I was spending more of my time at the business owner level, right, the strategic level, the managing the team level, where what more could be happening in the business, versus the 9 hats that you referenced earlier, right? And being in the weeds. So there's never a perfect right time and answer for that. But the idea is to continue to, like you were saying earlier, right? Continue to let go, continue to delegate, make sure that we're holding the team accountable so that when we do delegate, it's still being done correctly and your expectations are being met.
Yeah.
So self-made is a myth, as we know from the name of the show. Who are the three people that you wouldn't have achieved the successes that you have, and how did they help you along the way?
Three people, I would say. I'm going to sort of sound cliche like a Hollywood actor accepting an award, but I got to give credit to my wife first for, saying that line about you better start doing something because I'm tired of hearing you moan about this. She has a full time job as well. And at some point, I think she mentioned, well, try it out for a year.
Mm,
What's going to happen? We'll see.
wow.
And so I was already sort of ready to jump in. And that kind of gave me the kick in the back
Yeah,
to actually do it.
that's
So I
awesome.
think that I was really thankful, that that happened.
And what's your wife's name?
Chuba.
Chuba. Awesome.
And then, the other thing I was pleasantly surprised. It's not one person, but uh, when you're a small business owner, you have a lot of these networking opportunities
Hmm.
and associations you can join, or you're probably familiar with BNI, other groups that you can join that you get to talk and build a relationship, get to learn from each other, from like-minded business owners or others in different small businesses. That, for a new business owner coming from a corporate world, right?
Yeah.
That I found was very valuable, especially in my first couple of years,
Right. Yeah.
because you can build a relationship there pretty quickly and talk to a like-minded small business owner and ask basic questions.
Yes.
Hey,
Uh-huh.
I don't know what to deal with, how to deal with this situation. What would you do in this case? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
my craftsman didn't show up today. What should I do? Or, lots of other situations like that. So I think those two things have been very, very helpful for me. Um,
Yeah. The corporate world employee mindset to business owner mindset. You mentioned it earlier. I had a similar thing where I didn't realize how much was taken care of. I managed a P&L, so I assumed that it'd be the same, but you have HR, you have a sales team, and you have an operations team. It's like, oh my goodness, now I'm wearing all those hats and
and being a janitor sometimes.
yes, right? Vinay, in your journey when you felt stuck or overwhelmed, what belief about figuring it out on your own held you back and what changed once you brought in an outside perspective?
I think you and I talked a little bit the other day, and I was kind of, half joking but half serious that I've learned that I'm a little stubborn. You know, I I don't ask for help often enough or early enough, I think. So I don't know if it's just, when you get a decent education, you go through undergrad, masters, and all that, that type of structured education teaches you perseverance as well. And so your corporate jobs give you that structured mindset as well. And so I've always had this notion that, okay, throw me the five problems for today and I'll figure it out.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I might forget two of them by the end of the day, but that's kind of how I've been. As I'm growing now with, with the business, it, I do realize that my stubbornness is not, not always effective. I'm slowly kind of, delegation is one of those
Sure.
aspects
Yeah.
that's come out of that thinking is okay. Well, that's something you need to get better at, and then slowly starting to realize that perhaps outside help and a little bit guidance is also useful.
I think there's something about the corporate experience that does that. It's not okay in the corporate environment to admit that we have a flaw or a fault or right or that we're
Exactly.
not capable. And asking for help is generally frowned upon because everyone's too busy. So we do just have to figure it out. Right? It's an interesting perspective. The employee mindset that that can come over into business ownership. We have to just keep chipping away at it, right? And breaking apart the mold. So with everything that you've experienced and what we've chatted about today, what advice would you have for somebody who's contemplating going out on their own?
You know, I, again, it's usually the cliches that are come to mind for me because we all know when you're younger, you hear it from your elders and more experienced people out there in the world, whatever you're doing, right? Why you got to jump into it. That's when you know what the real deal is. I feel like that's just absolutely true, right? At some point, you can, after you've done a lot of thinking and planning and preparation, if you're still not ready to jump in, there's no answer that's going to be given to you that'll make it happen, right? You still have to jump in and kind of it's kind of like if you recall Sheldon from the comedy TV series,
Yeah.
he learns to swim through YouTube lesson. But you can do that, but you still have to jump into the
Yeah.
water and bust it out. That's exactly what I think about small business ownership. You can take all the education and you try to be really ready, but you still got to jump in at some point. And then the second thing is, once you do that, you got to be open to be completely vulnerable from a
Mm,
everyday standpoint.
yeah.
You're going to be in so many different situations that you're going to say, okay, I know something here, or you're going to have to be realistic and say, I really don't know, but I better figure this out.
All those vulnerabilities get exposed very quickly, don't they?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. You can't, call yourself a running back and not know how to hold the ball. You better learn that. And that's exactly how this is. And if you're not open to that, like every day I might have to do something different, and then that's going to become a challenge. And that's an easy way to get burnt out.
Vinay, it sounds like you've had some pretty incredible people along the journey with you. If they were all here today, what would you want to say to them?
I've always said this to anybody. I want to be grateful and thankful that, especially with a personality like mine, who thinks, who knows, yeah, I know most of these things. I can figure it out. It's always the plain speaking. It's always the real opinions. It's always the true feedback that you get back from people who help you, who truly want to help you. That's something to be very grateful about. And there's always some learning in there, and you have to recognize that, right? And then be thankful for that.
Vinay, appreciate you sharing your story today. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me over, Tim. Good talking to you.
For those listening, if you're stuck in the messy middle, there's a way through it and you don't have to figure it out on your own. We have a 2-week training and coaching trial to help guide you through that and get clarity. The link is in the description. And if this conversation resonated, like it, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss our next episode. I'll see you next time.